Buenos días por la tarde, chavales. Al asunto.
So like with the quantum drives one of the bigger components, especially if we then take the extra 50% that's needed for the jump drive.
The jump drive as well, yeah.
Like if you actually look at the interior of the center body, there's no space left in there. It's so thin because of like, and then you've got fuel in there as well.
You got stick it on the back. Yeah.
Makes the ship bigger.
Makes it bigger.
Fits less places.
Carry it out the front in little arms. Right.
Well, we could just reuse the ones from the mule, right?
Yeah, mule arms. That works. Yeah, or quantum ring.
Not like the ones from Star Wars.
Star Wars ring.
So my issue with doing so, because I saw them talking about that on Spectrum, my biggest problem with that would be how would they get them? So if you think about how big that is compared to the actual fighter that Obi-Wan uses, like how would you get that into a position to be used? Because they're big, and so for argument's sake, that thing itself would also then need everything it needs to power it, because we can't put a quantum...
Bueno, chavales. Como podéis ver... buenas Arquico, buenas Zorro, buenas Osneri, buenas Aulaso, buenas Titojin, buenas Maxil. Como podéis ver, lo tenemos que hacer en diferido. Porque... Y os voy a decir por qué. O sea... sí, quiero decir por qué. Porque me ha fastidiado. Y mirad. Si miramos el This Week, dice que es a las 4 p.m. UTC. Las 4 p.m. UTC. Y ha empezado una hora antes. ¡Ha empezado una hora antes! En fin. Es lo que hay, chavales.
Quantum fuel tank in the ship, because why would there be a quantum fuel tank in the ship? Means that would need quantum fuel tank, it would need its own power. Granted, it would work. We could do it from a tech standpoint, but like, how would you ever get in position? And then once you've done your jump, what do you do with it?
So you need a big cannon that fires.
Yeah, big slingshot on the planets.
Drake catapult.
What if we just move the whole body forward and then we've got more space at the back?
Oh, put the wings further back.
Yeah, so the canopy.
Están diciendo cosas... os comento, están hablando cosas sin ningún sentido a priori, porque están diciendo de ¿qué haría que una nave? Pues son preguntas que probablemente ellos se hagan a nivel interno, ¿no? Como por ejemplo, ¿qué haría que una nave pues pudiera ser utilizada con respecto a otra? ¿Qué caza podría ser? ¿Qué armas llevaría? ¿Por qué no le ponemos un arma gigante? ¿Por qué no adelantamos el cuerpo para que quepa más cosas, ¿no? O sea, están como parrafeando sobre una posible nave.
How can you say that as an artist with a straight face?
No, it's just not painful. You just have to then make every other ship bigger to then fit the Fury into. Now
but the UK, sure, that's a scale every ship up 20%, right?
That's fair.
Is it the whole?
¿Por qué no hacemos cualquier otra nave más grande, lo suficientemente grande como para que en todas quepa la Fury?
Whole idea, your argument is that the quantum drives are too big. But don't we determine how big the quantum drives are?
I don't think it's that they're too big. It's snubs play a very particular role within the game. They're not designed to be used as the same as fighters, but that's why fighters are bigger than snubs. They're supposed to be as small as possible to be able to take them into much smaller environments, and they're cheaper to operate, maintain, and run because you don't have to have everything to support the quantum drive. Yeah, well, not disposable because I mean there's a person inside. I was
going to say.
Disposable. It's cheaper. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Like it's the same like conversation I've had with people in the past where they're like, oh well, why would you not just use the best ship to do something? By best being like the biggest ship, whatever. If I was doing a pizza delivery in my local neighborhood, I'm not going to do that pizza delivery in a tank.
Yep.
I'm going to do it a little bit better because of the fuel costs, right? But if I'm having to do it...
I'm going full in there.
Vale, están hablando sobre el tema del control drive de la Fury, de por qué no tenerlo, y la idea de un snub, la idea de la Fury es precisamente que sea un bicho fácil de mantener, que no tienes los recursos en la nave como para poder darle soporte de alguna manera, ¿no? Es como para llevar algo más chiquitillo, esa es la idea del Snoop frente a un caza dedicado. Hombre, si pensamos, por ejemplo, lo que es una Kraken, pues en una Kraken efectivamente tendremos el sistema de reparación, rearme y todo esto, ¿no? En las bodegas inferiores de la Kraken, en los dos hangares laterales. Buenas, Airo.
Purely down to the fuel.
Buenas, malísima.
Good way to get views on YouTube.
But like, if I'm doing it in a much more dangerous environment, I'm not going to do it in a little Vespa. I might do it on a vehicle, right? So it's about bringing the right tool for the job. So once again, snubs, they serve a particular purpose and role within the universe. They're not designed to compete on the same level as fighters at everything. But that's why fighter is its own category compared to snub fighters.
Yeah, yeah.
So why is it cheaper to run about in a Caterpillar than a Kraken?
Well, it'll be cheaper on the Caterpillar than the Kraken because we're talking capital grade components and the maintenance of them will be much, much higher. Granted, it's not something people massively have to worry about at the minute, but like eventually you're going to have to repair them, install the costs and fuel to operate. It's going to get much worse.
Fair enough.
Está comentando una cosa importante también que, hablando otra vez nuevamente de la Caterpillar, de introducir el Snoop, que aquí yo creo que hay un problema y es que realmente, yo lo sigo diciendo, o sea, no podemos llevar ese Snoop en una Caterpillar por muy bonito que quede. O sea, en una situación de... Porque está comparando lo que es el gasto de lo que supone el tener una Caterpillar o tener una Kraken desplegando unidades. Que va a ser muchísimo más grande, que no va a ser algo que vamos a tener que hacer inmediato, pero desde luego que va a ser mucho más agresivo los gastos que vamos a tener que asumir como jugadores a la hora de darle mantenimiento a una Kraken. Pero es que en una Caterpillar realmente no se puede llevar esta nave. O sea, por mucho que quepa, o sea, necesitas el espacio suficiente como para poder desplegarlo. Y la verdad es que es algo muy complicado. O sea, si estás en caliente y tienes que desplegar en caliente, yo creo que a la hora de volar o a la hora de... Que esto lo tengo hablado alguna vez con compañeros, ¿no? Que han pues volado en vida real. Se mantienen una serie de mínimos de seguridad para tú poder operar un aeroplano, ¿no? Entonces, en el caso de la Fury, pues yo creo que pasa un poco lo mismo. O sea, hay que mantener unos mínimos de seguridad para tú poder realizar la actividad correctamente. Y obviamente, pues desde mi punto de vista de jugador, una Caterpillar no reúne los requisitos, las condiciones para realmente poder desplegar esta nave, porque lo hemos probado, he intentado meter la nave dentro y la verdad que es un puto peligro. O sea, estamos hablando de que si ya es complicado hacerlo desde una C2, desde una 2, desde una M2, en una Caterpillar o sea, estamos hablando de que el piloto promedio no va a ser capaz de desplegar una nave en caliente de una Caterpillar. Yo creo que hay que partir de esa base. Yo partiría de esa base para decir, vale, esta nave pues puede salir de aquí, ¿no? Yo creo que ese es un poco el detalle. Hombre, estando parados, tardando... O sea, estamos hablando de que igual desplegar esas naves te puede llevar 3 minutos. Yo creo que en 3 minutos, si tú tienes que desplegar una nave, es una vendida.
Give him that. It's BS. You decide how big the components are, and if you want to put one on there, you will.
If we can decide how big the components are, why don't we just make them all tiny and have a
Tiny.
big flying?
That'll make Alberto so much happier.
It's just a seat strapped to as many engines as we could find. Just leave it.
I mean, that's
there.
basically the Fury, though, right?
That's
It's just like a seat, with everything else strapped behind
We've
it.
taken it to as
Some
much
wings
of
to look cool.
an extreme as we can right now.
Yeah.
All right, then, John, can we make all components only 2 centimeters big? Cubes, right? All identical, this big.
I mean, on the plus
about how many
side,
components
that'll
you
make the
fit
doors a
with.
hell of a lot
Think how many components we have to redo.
I remember back in the day we talked about having like the vehicle, ship components and vehicle components, and then like suit components that were going to be like SD card style, like. That's what you need.
components.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
You could fit vehicle components on
Suits.
Max.
It's Why Corey's carrying around his car's air conditioning at the moment.
Yeah, I would tell you the same thing I tell the narrative team. You're all just making it up. Just make it up so it works.
When the narrative team make it up, that makes the rules. When everyone else makes it up, we're just making stuff up. But they have the right to go, we just made it up, but that's not a fact. Because they're the narrative team.
Until they change it.
Yeah, no, they're quite good at that, aren't they?
You ready to start the show?
Sure.
Go on, then.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Vale, después de la breve charla introductoria están hablando también de los subcomponentes que tendría pues una nave, o sea, un vehículo, que sería como micro SDs, o sea, de tener que cambiar los componentes, porque se supone que cada componente tiene 3 subcomponentes. Y estaban comentando un poquito así al aire de que cuando el equipo están, obviamente no están 100% en serio hablando de esto, ¿no? Pero están diciendo cuando el equipo narrativo dice algo, pues eso va a misa, y cuando nosotros lo decimos, pues lo inventamos, ¿no? Pues son hechos y tal. Bueno, están ahí como haciendo un poco la coña, ¿no? O sea, es una conversación alegre, vamos a decirlo, ¿no?
Welcome to, what's the name of the show? Star Citizen Live, the Invictus, 2953, all ships, round table, and...
It's not round.
Triangle table.
Triangle table.
Están con la coña de bienvenidos al Star Citizen Live, la mesa redonda, dice, no es redonda, es triangular. O sea, están en plan de cachondeo, obviamente, ¿vale? También. Dice a los Chucker, dice, aerodinámica, por ejemplo, un piloto bien entrenado pone en marcha un caza en algo menos de ese tiempo, dependiendo del avión y si está flight ready. Claro, pero, o sea, tiene lógica realmente el espacio que hay reducidísimo. Yo creo que es demasiado reducido en una Caterpillar para sacar una Fury en combate. O sea, yo no soy capaz de sacarla, o sea, vamos a ver, no soy capaz de sacarla. Sí, soy capaz de sacar la nave, pero la posibilidad de riesgo es demasiado elevada. O sea, es demasiado elevada. Y además estamos hablando de que para mí no tiene sentido el desplegar la nave, ¿vale? Para mí no tiene sentido el desplegar un caza si tienes que detener el movimiento. Sí. Si tienes que detener el movimiento, no es viable. En el caso de, por ejemplo, el estado actual del juego, sabemos que hay algo de desync y tal, y que bueno, pues tenemos que detener la nave porque no quedan más cojones, pero el día de mañana no va a haber ese desync, o esperemos que así sea. Y obviamente, pues naves como la C2, la M2, la A2, bueno, la A2 es más complicado, habría que mirar, pero sí van a poder desplegar esas naves en caliente, que al final es para lo que las quieres. Estamos hablando de que ahora mismo la detección de las emisiones está, digamos, mal dada por la carga del servidor, la latencia del servidor, o quizás por el hecho de contrario streaming, que no está haciendo el streaming de las entidades o los objetos adecuadamente, de tal manera de que no vemos, por ejemplo, una Hammerhead a 50 kilómetros o más, o no vemos, por ejemplo, una Javelin al otro lado de una luna, ¿vale? Porque tú, por ejemplo, una Bengal, tú estando en un punto de Hearthstone, por ejemplo, en una cara lateral de Hearthstone, con respecto a lo que es Verus Harbor, deberías de ver la Bengal igual que está en ese punto, porque es un pedazo bichardo de 1 kilómetro. Entonces, realmente, si tenemos en cuenta eso, y tenemos en cuenta además que el alcance de los torpedos, estamos hablando de 48 kilómetros, 50 kilómetros, no te puedes permitir el lujo de tener una nave parada en un combate desplegando. O sea, esas naves tienen que espabilar en caliente. O sea, mínimo tienes que moverte un algo. O sea, no puedes estar parado. O sea, mismo sea por 1000 movidas. O sea, si tú, o sea, son 1000 historias. O sea, no. Y tampoco puedes tenerlas predesplegadas. Porque si tú las tienes predesplegadas, el gasto de operación se dispara. O sea, porque el gasto de combustible se dispara, la capacidad que tienen esas naves de estar ahí se dispara. Si conviene o no conviene sacarlas, es una historia. O sea, eso lo puedes hacer con una Kraken. Puedes tener las naves predesplegadas. Pero porque las naves que llevas a bordo de la Kraken tienen salto cuántico y tienen una autonomía muy diferente. Pero en el caso de la Fury, el tenerlas predesplegadas es una movida. O sea, es un poco por ahí el tema, ¿no? Partiendo de la base de que, ya digo, que para mí el despliegue no me parece una maniobra para principiantes. Tal y como es el juego. Bueno, de hecho es que ni siquiera por otros motivos. Es por otros motivos, pero ni siquiera en la vida real se aterriza o se despegan. Bueno, no sé si aterrizar, pero despegar seguro que no se despega en movimiento. Aterrizar creo que tampoco. O sea, que tiene que mantener una serie de... o sea, en el caso de... Vale, en el caso de lo que es en la vida real, los portaaviones que vemos es por otros motivos, por el tema del viento, por el tema de mantener una velocidad adecuada para, digamos, ayudar a esa falta de pista que pueda tener un avión, aunque supongo que con los sistemas modernos pues incluso puede que sea posible lanzar un F-35 con un riel de estos lanzadera que tienen. O sea, esos son tecnicismos al final que se me escapan, ¿no? Pero desde luego sí que vemos que los portaaviones están siempre en funcionamiento, ¿no? Y están marcando un rumbo determinado y tienen en cuenta el viento. En el caso del Star Citizen, creo que es una cuestión de seguridad, el hecho de que de alguna manera habrá momentos en que sí es preferible despegar en estático, digamos el carrier, pero no va a ser la situación ideal. Si tú, por ejemplo, tienes que ir a una zona de conflicto, como por ejemplo estamos viendo el tema del desembarco o sea, de la zona de la Reclaimer, en la que tienes que despegar naves, si tú estás quieto, yo es que ni siquiera te veo quieto que estás desplegando naves, te mando un torpedo en dummy y es que te pongo de verano. O sea, eso es un puto peligro. En fin.
Well, technically, it's actually a hexagon. Because technically, it's one. You know, it's technically there's the three sides, and then there's the other three sides that are shorter, and then that's six, and then there's these ones that are 7, 8. So I guess it's actually an octagon. It's just very weirdly shaped. No.
Long hour.
As you were saying. We got there.
I'm here by myself today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and we're in week 2 of Invictus, the yearly celebration and event based on the military vehicles of the Star Citizen universe. Joining me on the show this week is an esteemed panel of vehicle experts and Corey Bamford. Starting to my left, we have...
Done him there.
Immediate straight on Corey. He's sitting there minding his own business.
Why are you coming at me like this?
Or at least pick on Dan.
You're getting picked on today.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured it out already, it's going to be one of those shows. Joining us to the left, Ben.
Thanks, good, yep.
Ben, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Ben Curtis, I'm the Vehicle Art Director for Star Citizen on the PU. I look after ships and vehicles and weapons.
Okay. And to my right, John Crew.
Hello.
Who are you and what do you do?
I'm John Crew. I'm the vehicle director. Once again, being on camera so many times in the last 24 hours. It's like...
Yes, but while you're on camera in the last 24 hours, we actually filmed those IC things. Like I think it was March 29th when we
yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
and
so
they've all just come out in one shot.
And you had to, there was a lot of like, do I remember what I said? Can I see it because I don't remember what I said?
There was lots of naming changes as well.
Yeah.
Between when we filmed it and when things went out.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have to dub it all or something?
Did nobody notice?
No. Oh man, I wish we'd done like a really bad dub over the top of it. So every time the word MISC was said, it's just like Mirai.
Yeah. That would be...
Mark, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Mark Gibson, I am the lead vehicle content designer for
What's the lead
spaceships.
vehicle content design?
So I run the vehicle content team, making sure that the ships come alive and work from a design and functionality standpoint.
He's being very polite. He tells
Bueno, tenemos, aparte de ver al chaval este Ben, que está a la izquierda del de camiseta roja, y a Juan Tripulación, que todo el mundo lo conoce, que uno es director de arte y otro director del equipo de vehículos, es uno de los pilares, de hecho, de Star Citizen. Pues el de rojo, ¿vale? Es el encargado de llevar, o sea, de dirigir al equipo que se encarga de que las naves funcionen. ¿De que una rampa no te mate? Tal vez. Pues sí.
One man art team.
All right, no
one else got credit.
Sorry, we're going to do a little insert on this. So we're filming with Dan, and this is back in, like I said, March 29th or whatnot. And Dan is who was in here in this studio, and he was able to make it. Alex could not make it into the studio for the filming. So Dan's talking and doing the interview. And during the interview, I'm like, this is starting to sound like Dan is the only one who built the ship. And so I asked Dan, I'm like, Dan, you weren't the only person who built the ship. He goes, no. And he went into this awesome, amazing, lovely tribute to Alex. Alex, who's on the vehicle content team.
Rest in peace, Alex.
He goes off and starts talking about how Alex took him under his wing and how Alex really guided him through the entire process, and it's all really sweet. But at the end of it, we realize it starts sounding like Alex is no longer with us, like Alex has died. And so we had it in the cut, and then through a miscommunication, it got cut because somebody thought him sounding like he was dead was a problem. and so it didn't make the final episode, but Alex, what's Alex's last name?
Williams.
Alex Williams, I hope you're watching. You did an amazing job on the Fury.
You killed him off for real.
And we will have you on the show at some point when you can make it. All right, and then Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Danks. I'm a vehicle content designer too, so I'm one of the team members that Mark leads.
Cool. And go ahead, Corey.
I don't even know if I want to now.
Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Well, we find his mic's been cut.
Let's just
since
move
the
on.
beginning.
That's Corey. Corey's there in the middle.
I'm just here to vibe, really.
El chaval que está en el medio, que es el producer, que lo hemos visto otras veces, y es el que está haciendo que funcione mejor lo que es el tema de equipo de vehículos y tal.
Our citizen feature and content teams, and we discuss as many aspects of Star Citizen's continuing vehicle development as possible. We did put up a thread earlier this week and collect some questions from you, the backers. We chose the ones that were voted up most, and that this collection of people could answer. We'll get to those in a little bit. Before we get started, I want to start with a forever question. I'm going to start with a couple forever questions, things that as every year goes by, these are the questions that always exist, and because every show is somebody's first show. First discussion point: is there such a thing as too many ships? And I'm gonna let you start with this one, John.
¿Y algo así como demasiadas naves en el juego?
Definitely not. It's only a problem when there's too many of the same type. Like, we obviously have, like, I forget the exact number now, but it's like 200-ish.
Oh, we're at 197 now.
Close. I'm thinking in the future.
Yep. 197 that have been announced and revealed.
So far.
And hopefully at the end of this show, still 100.
No guarantees.
Sorry, Elliot. Just preemptively.
It didn't work out last time we did one of these. If we had 197 light fighters, that's too many light fighters, I think. But when you spread it over all the careers, or the roles, or the progression within the roles, I think there's certainly room for plenty of them.
Anybody with an opposing view?
Están comentando que hay 197 naves ahora mismo y que pues realmente no hay demasiadas naves. Si hubiera 197 cazas ligeros sí que sería demasiado, pero que repartidas a lo largo de todos los roles y todas las posibilidades que tiene el Star Citizen en sus profesiones, que hay bastante espacio para meter bastantes más.
Very specific instance. No, I don't think so.
That's not enough ships.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes down to as well, doesn't it? Because you have a whole host of different manufacturers and a whole host of different roles, and not every manufacturer is going to deliver every role. And yeah, I think that's fine, that's fair. I think there's also a lot of space in our universe for things that aren't necessarily like straight off the production line, right? So we're bringing these new systems out, and you don't expect them to have, like, every system to have, oh, it's got a new manufacturer in it and it's got this, that, and the other. But I think there's definitely scope for more less official ships, so things that wouldn't necessarily fall under certain manufacturers, or they might have started out as a particular thing but they've been retrofitted and kept alive over generations of
Millennium Falcons kind of thing.
Yeah,
Things that
yeah,
have been
yeah.
customized so much,
Yeah.
you can't even tell what it
Junkers.
originally was.
Yeah, like things that just...
Oh no,
Jalopy?
no, not again.
Jalopy?
Not again.
That's my...
You've got the cutter. What more do you want?
I'd agree with John on that. Like, even within subgroups, it's important to have like even very similar ships to each other because every manufacturer will do it a little bit different. So, and every like players for the most part have manufacturers they prefer and certain traits that manufacturers do compared to other ones. So certain people might be more luxurious, more military, etc., etc. So having multiple of a similar type across multiple manufacturers, I think that's fine because it gives people variation about what.
Claro, al final está diciendo que efectivamente pues tener diferentes fabricantes que ocupen el mismo rol, que al final pues es algo interesante porque hay diferentes tipos de gustos a las personas y además cada marca pues tiene sus pros y sus contras, como puede ser lujo, como puede ser más militar.
5 or 6 across multiple manufacturers.
O sea que realmente que hay espacio suficiente para muchas más naves teniendo en cuenta esas variaciones también.
This idea that the manufacturers all have to have their own distinct identities and all have to adhere to that stuff, and then we introduce things like, well, here's MISC doing this other thing, and they create Mirai, and so that they can still kind of keep their styling but still experiment. But in the real world of automobiles and stuff, you see a car come out and influence a dozen other brands, like when that new Mustang came out back in 2008, and then you saw everybody from Dodge and whatever all try to do their version.
Funny, right?
Yeah, but it's like, is there room in Star Citizen for a manufacturer to look at something another manufacturer is doing, and maybe for Anvil to try to do a Crusader-style ship or something?
Yeah, I mean, don't see why not. It's like a lot of our stuff is based off cars. It's going to be a very British reference, but you have like Vauxhall cars, which is Opel in Europe, and I forget what the actual name of this particular brand was, but basically the Saab 9.3 is a Vauxhall underneath.
Right.
And at the time they own the same companies, and they're like, take the car, you can change the bodywork slightly, and make it a Saab.
Yeah. Well,
and the Saab just ignored that and did.
Look at like, was it Porsche that Porsche always made racing cars or sports cars and everything, and then they brought out the SUV. They've done all right, and then like now we've got Lamborghini SUVs, we've got like all, and they're like, oh, what's that?
Están hablando de una comparativa de lo que es el cómo influencian unas marcas a otras en el mundo del automóvil, ¿no? Y comentando que, por ejemplo, tenemos a Porsche, ¿no? Que sacó lo que es el SUV, ese todoterreno de Porsche, que luego salió también el Lamborghini su versión, y así, ¿no? Que hay como que están comentando esa influencia de cómo se podría reflejar en el Star Citizen.
From their like racing kind of pedigree and then implement it into the normal like Quattro with Audi and stuff like that, and like Porsche with the flat six and things like that. Like they kind of get informed by their adventures. Like I think the Ford GT was like a massive push as well, like where they tend to use the racetrack as a place to experiment what works and what has good brand
justify
appeal.
the cost as well.
Yeah,
so if they can take technology away from that and put it into the mainstream, then that.
So
That
more
makes
modern MISC ships will probably steal a bit from Mirai if it worked and what didn't work, and less experimental stuff, but some of the new direction.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to MISC and Mirai specifically, like I think there's a real there's a hard distinction for me. Like MISC are kind of very utilitarian, very they've got a purpose, they've got a role, they've got a job, whereas Mirai is definitely like the performance division.
Yeah.
So anything that doesn't necessarily fit into that sort of industrial feel, like I think MISC is a really very strong art style, and very happy where that's at. But that doesn't mean they can't try new things. And even if you take things like RSI, and you take some of our old RSI ships versus our new RSI ships, they progress over the generations of their vehicle releases. They span hundreds of years, or
many hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people have their own ideas about what these brands are. You see it within the community. Every time we introduce a new ship, they're arguing, is that really a Tumbrel? Is that really Crusader? That doesn't look like a MISC ship or whatnot. Yeah. These conversations happen internally too, though.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Do you remember a keen disagreement where you were making a vehicle of one manufacturer and just somebody was really vehemently against it? That's not that manufacturer, it's got to be somebody else.
Mule.
Mule's
an easy one.
Kind of split the wire a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
But, I think kind of like I think the functionality of the Mule leads more to Drake than necessarily like, you know, it is quite a high-end vehicle for Drake. It feels a little bit more refined, but a lot of the inspiration for the Mule came from sort of what we see now in tractors and combine harvesters and that sort of thing, and that they are, you know, very purpose-built vehicles, so they kind of tick that sort of that brief. But they are just a little bit nicer.
Melkor the Wise is like...
Están comentando un poquito el tema de algo que ya han comentado los insights sobre el tema de las características de las marcas, de que las marcas tienen sus rasgos, de que por ejemplo Mesa es una marca muy fuerte, pero eso no significa que puedan intentar cosas nuevas, y por ahí sale Mirai, y que también a nivel interno tienen conversaciones sobre pues si una nave realmente es de una marca, ¿no? Realmente esta nave es de Mesa, no se parece de Mesa, ¿no? Como puede ser el tema de la Razor, que es una conversación pues que seguramente ha surgido, ¿no?
Sí, that sort of style.
The Vulcan concept was Anvil for probably 80% of its concept development, and then got towards the end and we're like, it's sort of not particularly Anvil-y anymore, it's getting towards Aegis, and then like the whole cockpit bit of it changed to be more like the front of the Reclaimer.
Right. I still think the Vulture looks more Argo.
Well, the big dirty secret is that...
Que mira, están comentando por ejemplo el tema de la Vulcan, o el tema de la mule, ¿no? Que la mule pues fue desarrollada con influencia de lo que es tractores y lo que es las cosechadoras que hemos en la actualidad, ¿no? Con ese propósito, esa funcionalidad, esa construcción diseñada para la funcionalidad. Y luego que vemos, por ejemplo, el caso de la Vulcan, que fue una nave que al principio iba a ser Anvil y que luego a mitad de lo que es el desarrollo de la nave, pues el 80% de la nave es Anvil y luego decidieron que fuera Aegis. Y luego están comentando también, pues a mí me parece que es más Argo, ¿no? Que hay esas conversaciones también internas de dónde encajar una nave, ¿no?
Racing ship that's kind of Mirai performance kind of thing, like we weren't really sure which direction it was going to go then, right? And it was like every time I modelled anything, I went square, I went big bolt, and Ben was like, no, rivets, metal, like chrome. Like, I was like, okay. And it was like every mechanism was more Drakey until I like remembered like the direction of it, right?
And I want to jump in there before the person goes to Reddit. You just referred to the Fury as a racing ship. Obviously, the two variants that we just released are not dedicated.
No, I meant like nippy, like they're fast and stuff like that,
yeah just before the Reddit thread started. Although we did discuss the possibility of exploring new variants. Let's talk about that real quick, because this is the Invictus show and whatnot. Let's take a minute. It's my show. We'll do whatever I like. Pitch me a variant. So John, for those of you who may...
Decirme una variante posible de la Fury, que hemos comentado sobre las variantes y tal.
John said that we're open to exploring additional variants of the Fury in the future. We're here. We're live. Yes. Hi. Put you on the spot here. Pitch me a Fury variant, just off the top of your head. If you could make any Fury variant, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Here?
Boarding variant.
A what?
Boarding variant. So the front of it, the actual circular thing at the front would actually be to the small docking collimatric. So once you disable the ship, you could just slam into it. It opens up, force open the...
I feel like you need to turn the dome round, the donut, so it's like facing that way. So it kind of goes this way instead, and then you just like...
You'd be quite
could just have the
to
tube come out. Well, you disable the ship. If you've got one of them in your ship, you can then use that to get over. So you don't have to EVA over. You get in it, you fly over. It's really manoeuvrable. It's really good handling. Go on.
So you'd have it with wings, and they're basically the claws, or
latch on
without wings, and it just gets shot straight out of Jeffrey's tube.
Oh no! He's done it.
No. Again. But in essence, yeah, that would be.
Estoy hablando que una de las posibles variantes de la Fury podría ser una versión de abordaje, de que haga simple el de que se estampe cuando...
You're the weapon.
Yeah, you're the weapon. Do you not have faith in your
own my own?
Does it detach once you've got out? Or
no, it stays attached because you've forcibly docked yourself with, just like what's the other one called? We made
Legionnaire.
Just like Legionnaire, but single-person Legionnaire. So you forcibly dock with the enemy, you force your way into the ship, and then you try and steal the ship.
Immediately shot, and then they all...
Right. Well, if you're just not that good at FPS, fine.
All right, so that's Mark's pitch. We can't spend too much time on this. Corey, what's your pitch?
I was thinking short-range cargo/transport kind of thing for zipping about.
Put cargo in
well,
the Fury?
You could work something out, right?
That's gonna be my bit.
With no quantum
You're
drive.
the artist. You have to do it. Where are you thinking about putting cargo?
I mean,
some little arms, like a little submarine. You know,
yeah,
little,
you can give it like a little
Or,
arm.
or just strap it to the top like the family
yeah.
wagon.
Yeah, the roof bars.
Oh, can't put it on the top because that'll block the fuel port.
You don't need fuel, just put some zip ties on it. It's fine.
That's fair.
All right, Chris?
People transport. Take the guns off the wings and strap on some drop seats.
No way.
Claro, otra que sería para transporte de pasajeros, de quitar lo que serían las armas de los laterales y ponerle ahí asientos de gente, para llevar gente. Otra versión que podría ser de carga. Están haciendo un popurrí de ideas, ¿vale? No es algo que vaya a salir ni están confirmando nada, ¿de acuerdo?
Salvage. Yeah, definitely.
Salvage Fury?
Yeah, definitely. That'd be well cool. You change the top 2 guns for like salvage arms, and then the bottom 2 could like, instead of having like, we have like the 2 size 1 missiles on the inside, you could put like, that's where it gets stored or whatever.
But where would you put the material?
It would be mounted on the inside, so then you just nip out real quick, mine it, and then drop back to your reclaimer or whatever, and then like throw them.
Not like a chain of saddlebags,
Yeah.
you know, trailing behind you as you're flying.
The idea is that like you deploy so many of them that by the time you'd filled up, the other 20 you had with you would have already got it. You're like locusts flying through. There you go, there's your name. The Fury Locust. There it is.
All right, just a reminder that the views and opinions.
Otra opción que dicen es de hacer una versión de chatarra, o sea...
I don't know, everyone's told them the good ones. I'll go boring and go racing.
I promise nobody's taking the good ones.
Yeah, like, go racing though, I think it just needs to like, just have one massive engine on the back of it and some really little wings. So it's just like, basically like a rocket.
A racing variant.
Yeah, like a rocket.
How'd you get to the power plant?
You just don't worry about it. You got a pit crew for that.
Yeah.
Well, no, we can use the Gian Tech, right? So it can be like a little like floaty ball thing on some arms behind it, and it's like a really massive, great big engine that comes down, lifts up, and it's good.
There you go.
Just basically, strap yourself to a rocket.
Ship it.
All right, John, I don't want to pick any of these, so you decide.
You don't? They're all
Pick one.
This is how we do it.
Oh, we're doing it live. Okay.
Melee version. 4 big spikes.
You're saying this because you saw Adam made this
Yes.
morning. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So what?
So this morning, Adam scaled up some of the FPS combat knives, the one that looks like it's partially a chain.
To the size of the wings.
And he put them on the wings, so it looked like it had 4
Knives.
bladed, knived wings, because with the size of the wings, and you just ram people with it.
That would work great with your docking idea, though.
There you go.
Good point.
I would say,
Combine it.
along with the melee idea, though, back when I was trying to make the Grey Cat PTV fly around and everything, I had actually put giant fists in the front. Remember the old Superman Hot Wheels toy that, you know, for some reason Superman had a spaceship?
Están hablando en general de cosas varias, pero bueno, dicen una variante que sería una versión de melee, o sea, están en plan de que tuviera cuchillas en vez de armas y que pudieras embestir a la peña con eso, o sea, son cosas bastante crazy, ¿no? Bastante locas. Sin más.
Like, man, I feel like
We can make it happen.
I feel like we can make it happen.
Submersible variant.
What?
Don't start the spaceship submarine argument again.
Come on.
All right, so we're about halfway through the show already.
Seriously.
Let's jump into some backer questions. So these were questions that were submitted on Spectrum and voted up by you, the viewers, and in no particular order here. Saw this one coming. How do you expect to work through the backlog of ships? And at what point in the game can we expect larger ships such as the Kraken, Polaris, and Perseus? Now, this one's a when question, but let's go with the core here. How are we expecting to work through this backlog?
Cool. I'll start and then others can chime in if they want. So the last year or so, we've been really sort of improving and just making the pipeline work better. Mark and Corey have done a great job revitalizing all the documentation that sort of I wrote years ago and we've just lived with. But because I've done more and more leadership and directorship, I've not been so hands-on with things. So they've taken that over and built the pipeline. The last 2 ships we've released have gone through sort of that new pipeline and things have mostly gone smoother. Still doing some tweaks as we go. But ultimately, at the end of the day, big ships need a lot of resources to make them. And where we want to get to is a place where we're still delivering the same amount of content as we do now a year, as well as 1 to 2 capitals a year on top of that and supporting all the other teams like we do. And at the end of the day, that just needs more people. So
you want to get to the point of delivering
Yes.
capitals of ships.
Yes,
You're not saying that we are at that point.
We're not at that point yet. We're building to that point. So the last few months we've been starting to expand the team, which people have probably seen with the introduction of the Montreal.
Vale, menos mal. Ahora tengo voz. ¡Ah! En fin. Gracias, chavales, por avisar. Entonces, están comentando algo importante, ¿no? Están comentando el tema de que, como os comentaba, Mark, el chaval este que va con la camiseta azul que está en medio, es un añadido que hemos visto que estaba a principios de este año, se ha movido de otro equipo, que estaba en el equipo de props, haciendo de producción, y se ha metido ahora de producer en lo que es el equipo de naves. Y parece ser que el chaval pues es bueno haciendo las cosas, ¿no? Por eso pues lo han cambiado ahí para ver si también puede agilizar lo que es el proceso de nave. Entonces está comentando, Juan Tripulación, ¿vale? John Crew está comentando que junto con él han revisado lo que es la documentación que tenían anteriores de las naves para tratar de poner todo en orden y también tratar de reorganizar esa pipeline, esa línea de trabajo que tienen para poder fabricar las naves y poder meterlas en el juego. Y dice que efectivamente es una cuestión de recursos, una cuestión de que necesitamos más gente para poder sacar las naves, pero están construyendo una forma de trabajar que les permita sacar de entre 1 a 2 naves capitales por año, aparte de lo que son las naves que tienen que salir según calendario para, bueno, pues para hacer ventas, para los parches, para tal, ¿no?
Vehicle team, and we're also looking for more artists in the UK. So if people are watching.
A ver un momento, porque está diciendo.
Yes, starting to expand the team, which people have probably seen with the introduction of the Montreal Vehicle team, and we're also looking for more artists in the UK. So if people are watching.
Claro, al final también está diciendo que están, aparte, junto con esta iniciativa, están buscando pues también ampliar lo que es el equipo del grupo de trabajo, y es una de las claves una de las pruebas de esto es el equipo de Montreal, que sabemos que el equipo de Montreal pues va a tener un equipo de naves y que estemos pendientes del tema, ¿no?
Yeah, and any
good leads.
Yeah, any lead artists watching.
Replace Corey.
Yeah, give us a shout.
A little plug.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. A lot of these shows do serve multiple purposes, and they're absolutely, from the conversations that I have to have with the talent acquisition team every single week, they're definitely a hiring tool.
Run the ads and basically just run
This is the ad.
our page.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're presenting to these people who it would be that they're working with. So
How
we're
much
showing them.
It's cool.
Are you sure you want us on here then?
It's too late now.
I think, like, just to touch on that as well, is you know, people kind of think it's easy, right? You want more spaceships, you hire more people, and done. Like, it's this 10 more people, you can do 3 more ships. But there's obviously a lot of time and effort goes into like training up staff and making sure staff are...
Claro, dice que puede pensar mucha gente que simplemente es el pillar y decir, bueno, ¿quieres hacer más naves? Pues contrata más gente, pero que hay un proceso de entrenamiento que no es tan sencillo. O sea, hay que meter a la gente en lo que es la maquinaria de producción de Dig, ¿no?
We'll have like, it goes from one person that's already trying to juggle like 3 or 4 ships at once to then going, okay, well, they can now juggle away, and it's like, no, it's just not sustainable. So we have grown the team quite a lot in the last kind of 6 months to a year. We've started a new team in Montreal. We're looking to grow a second team and probably a third team in the UK. So yeah, like we're expanding, but it does take time. And
yeah, there's a misconception that, like you said, you just add more people and instantly more things get made.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and this isn't just for vehicles, this is for any discipline in anything, when you have to teach, when you have to train, when you have to onboard, your production gets slower. Because you now have to slow down everything that you would normally be doing in order to explain everything and make this stuff work. And then, so things slow down before they get faster. And this is with anything, not just vehicles, whatever. And then, you know, God help us, you know, the person doesn't last the person does, goes and finds a different opportunity, or just, they interviewed well, but the reality wasn't. And now that slowdown has yielded no positive results. So it is definitely a process. And yeah, so we talked about.
Está comentando y describiendo el proceso de lo que es instruir a alguien para trabajar, para poder hacer naves, o bueno, en general. Y el tema está en que, claro, que una vez nosotros tenemos a una persona que la estamos enseñando, vamos a tener que reducir, o sea, rebajar, o sea, lo que es la carga de trabajo que hay para poder, o sea, la velocidad de trabajo la tienen que reducir para poder enseñarle a esa persona, para tomarse el tiempo, ¿no? Para poder enseñarle a esa persona ciertos procesos. Entonces, también puede suceder que además la persona luego pues te salga rana, es decir, que no, o bien la persona busca una oportunidad nueva, o pues esa persona pues realmente no está a la altura de lo que se exige para poder trabajar en las oficinas de la Environment Games. O sea, que es como un proceso, ¿no? Que no es simplemente contratar a más gente y ya.
A really dangerous thing to get into if you have multiple teams. That's off in the face. If you've got like multiple teams and you're like, oh, you're the A team and you're the B team, or you're team this and your team that, and it's not a case of that. It's the way we prioritize our ships is we get our ship priority, and that comes from John and the execs and all the important people, and then we look at what resources we have and what people are best fitted for, and then we allocate work that we feel confident that people can achieve. And like if we had a new team come in and we're like, hey, we got some capital ships for you, here you go, you're not setting that team up to succeed, you're just setting them up to fail. Realistically, our big capital ships take a sizable team to deliver. So yeah, initially we're getting them on board to kind of help, fill out some of our backlog ships, help do some variants of existing ships. We're at the moment just trying to kind of, like I say, onboard them. They've been going for
April 1st is when they officially started.
Okay, yeah, a couple of months now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're kind of, they're getting up to speed. They're doing a fantastic job of learning the ropes and understanding our processes and pipelines, working through a few ships that will be coming out at some point, and then we'll put on something bigger.
Well, that's the other thing. They're a brand new team. They're not massive. It's not like they're anywhere near the size of the UK ship team. It's like, if I remember correctly, it's 3 artists, 1 designer. Is it 4 artists maybe?
4 technically.
4
artists technically, but 1's in the UK at the moment.
Yeah,
and 1 designer who was here for the last 3 weeks doing his onboarding. Right. He's literally on a plane now back to Canada to carry on with those guys when he gets there.
And when you get a brand new team like that, it's not even just them learning how we do things, because obviously every team does, like the way you build an environment isn't the way you build a ship, and the quality and the techniques and everything are massively different. So like if you've got a brand new team coming in, you're not going to throw them on a ship that's going to take them the next, for argument's sake, 18 months to develop, because like the quality in their work over that 18 months from when they first start to when they get towards the end is going to massively change. With the larger ships, you need people who are more experienced, who are already embedded.
Claro, está comentando el tema de la incorporación del equipo Monreal, que están ahí como para asistir o como para hacer variantes, como para hacer versiones. Yo creo además que el equipo Monreal lo que puede ayudar, chavales, es algo importante, y es el hecho de quizás acelerar el proceso de los reworks, de retrabajar las naves, que hace buena falta. Yo creo que puede ser importante su labor en eso. Pero claro, comentan que a la hora de hacer... Vaya cara se le ha quedado al pobre. A la hora de hacer lo que es las naves, como naves capitales y demás, realmente se requiere a gente que tenga una experiencia, un camino más labrado, ¿no? Y luego el hecho de que efectivamente pues no vas a poner a trabajar a ese equipo, pues un equipo que lleva pues 18 meses, o sea, no vas a poner una nave, va a trabajar una nave que lleva 18 meses de trabajo, porque las capacidades que tienen cuando empiezan a aprender a familiarizarse con las tecnologías o con las herramientas que están utilizando en Clean Games durante los primeros meses a los meses finales, pues la habilidad que ellos adquieren pues varía muchísimo, o sea, la calidad a la que son capaces de producir varía muchísimo. Entonces se trata pues eso, que es un equipo más de asistencia por el momento, y luego pues ya una vez vayan metiéndose más en lo que es acostumbrándose, ¿no?, a la forma de trabajar, pues quizás tratar de hacer algún proyecto más grande. Pero que definitivamente que el equipo que hay en Montreal no es comparable a por ejemplo el equipo de naves que hay en Reino Unido, que están hablando que tienen 4 o 5 personas nada más en Montreal, y que para una nave capital hace falta un montón de peña.
The ships small ships can be complicated, big ships are complicated. It's all fairly complicated stuff. But like I say, when you get to a capital ship, there's a lot of unknowns there. I do think we've got Jason, who's come across from the environment art team, and he's got a whole wealth of knowledge on building environment art assets and building out those kits. So he's got a huge amount of knowledge there we can lean on for building out our capital ships. But yeah, like I say, sticking someone on something for a year and a half when they're initially you want to get a few under your belt, learn the processes, touch lots of different areas of the ship, do interiors, exteriors, and just learn everything basically.
I think another point as well is that in general for interiors, at least the quality of what we receive in like pre-production is generally spread a little bit thinner. So the interior concepts for capital ships are generally like key art and some fairly like vague interior spaces. So like the production team has to do a lot more of the exploration. Whereas if you have a smaller ship, generally the interior concept's a lot stronger because there's just fewer things to work on, right? You get a lot more detail, a lot more to work from. So yeah, I'd say like definitely you have, coming into production, you have sort of fewer things to figure out on smaller ships.
The other thing is with if you move on, the other thing is with the capital ships, once we actually put them in, we want to try and build them in a way that makes it easier to then do the other capital ships of that same manufacturer.
Okay, keep going.
No, do the other ships of that exact same manufacturer. So like once we do one RSI, we want to set ourselves up so that we can roll into the others a lot easier. So instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time, we have stuff as a foundation to just move it.
Ya está diciendo algo importante, ¿no? Dice, bueno, que aparte del hecho de que cuando tenemos una nave pequeña, pues es mucho más fácil atender los detalles que cuando, porque está mucho más atado en el tema de los conceptos. Cuando te entrega un concepto en una nave pequeña está más atado, pero que a una nave más grande, con espacios más abiertos, a la hora de conceptualizar la nave, que hay mucho más espacio a la interpretación y es mucho más complejo, ¿no? También están comentando el hecho de que la idea que hay la idea que hay es que cuando nosotros trabajemos en una nave capital, comenta, que no tengamos que inventar la rueda de seguido, sino que si nosotros trabajamos en una nave capital de RSI podamos utilizar eso adquirido, esa nave, esa base, para poder seguir haciendo otras naves de RSI y no tener que estar, pues eso, buscándonos las castañas de seguido, ¿no?
Progress on modularity since it was last talked about.
Yes, good news at last.
Good news.
Oh, well, we'll be the
Good
judge
news.
of that. We'll be the judge of that.
So,
You ready, chat?
you ready,
Eyes on the
chat?
track, guys, come on.
Yep.
So with the development of the whole sea, we've pretty much figured out the last hurdle. And in fact, Chris is responsible for the test that I got him to do for it, where we can have object containers, which is the interior collection of assets, loaded as an item, loaded onto the ship, because that's how the rear of the whole sea is attached to the ship and moves with it. What had stopped us technically going any further with this was items inside those object containers couldn't talk to the vehicle it was connected to.
Right.
So the example of the retaliator, the torpedo droppy arms, they're actually part of the exterior of the ship currently because that's the only way they can work. So if we allowed you to swap the modules, no matter what module you had, there'd be a pair of torpedo arms dangling through the middle of it. Chris did a test where he attached a load of missile racks and torpedoes to the inside of the back of the hull sea, which is not going to ship with it.
Wait, you're saying we're not
Unless we
having a
accidentally
torpedo
did it.
hull sea?
Yeah.
There is a shelf that says "Do not submit" in very large letters.
And the pilot had full control of that, and they could fire them. So after the whole sea ships and we found any more quirks with that setup, we're in a position where, to my knowledge, touch wood, technically there's nothing stopping us doing modularity now. That was the last.
Bueno, está diciendo, hablando sobre la modularidad, que buenas noticias, que debido al trabajo que han hecho en la Hull C, de que haya un objeto dentro de un objeto, dentro de un objeto, y que eso sea pues interactuable con lo que es la nave en sí, pues debido a que la parte de atrás de la Hull C al extenderse, pues es eso precisamente, han hecho pruebas de ponerle torpedos a esa sección de la nave para que el piloto los pueda lanzar como prueba, no es algo que se vaya a quedar así. Y que efectivamente el piloto pues consigue tener control y que eso es un comienzo y algo muy bueno porque dicen que en principio tienen la clave para poder hacer módulos pues por ejemplo, la Retaliator o de las naves que vengan. O sea, que parece que tienen ese tema atado. Dice que toca madera, pero parece que tienen ese tema atado y que una vez consigan entregar la Hull C, que a partir de ahí, en principio tendrán vía libre para hacer los módulos de las naves.
So it is really under heavy active development at the moment. So physics team have done a lot of work in the last 6 months on it. We're now at a point where other feature and gameplay teams have joined them to sort of work out the quirks with it. The vehicle content team have provided assets of ships set up in this new way of doing things. Should caveat this, it's not a vehicle thing, it's an everything thing. Every destructible system in the game will use this. So whilst everyone sort of uses the vehicle example of like, oh, bullets going through ships, it replaces the prop breakable system, it replaces the environment breakable system, it replaces the vehicle damage system. There's another one I forget. So environment teams, prop teams, vehicle teams, we're all working on this at the moment with a bunch of use case scenarios that are with the engineers.
So it's more like an overall destructible physics system.
Yes, yeah. People have probably heard the word maelstrom in various monthly reports and pieces.
Checking whether that's legit or
It's
not.
not a ship.
I'll wipe the board when we get back.
Right.
So that's the name of that overarching system. It's definitely been said.
In all fairness, it's just the name for the system that they already knew was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the internal project name.
But by giving something a name, you give it power.
But it's more than just the physicalized damage for ships. It is a global...
Nos vamos a volver locos, chavales. Está hablando de cómo progresa la fiscalización del daño, las armaduras, los blindajes. Dicen que hay buenas noticias para eso, que no solo estamos trabajando o sea, que no, el sistema que están creando no solo afectará a eso, que además le llaman Maelstrom, o sea, a lo que es el sistema general de fiscalización de objetos, por así decirlo. A ver, están diciendo que va a afectar a todo. O sea, que va a afectar a props, que va a afectar a edificios, que va a afectar a todo. O sea, que el sistema de blindaje y la destrucción de entorno, la destrucción, pues imaginaros, de un outpost, o sea, los outposts van a tener las propiedades de blindaje que se nos han comentado, de que los proyectiles impacten, de que estén fiscalizados. O sea, estamos hablando de que nos vamos a volver puto locos. Destrucción de farolas, Monkey, eso sería... Eso sería la polla. O sea, prefiero que me multen 20.000, tío, por destruir una farola que me revienten la nave, ¿no? Pero sí, están hablando de que... A ver, es que son muy buenas noticias. O sea, que esa fiscalización del daño sería global. Sería para todo lo que es el juego, ¿no? Eso sería brutal.
Ship tractors. Ship tractor beams were recently brought up again.
Y que están trabajando en ello. O sea, que están trabajando en ello de forma activa y que está progresando bien, que está el equipo de props, que están un montón de equipos trabajando en ello.
What's the state of these and their large cargo counterparts?
So the ship tractor beams, we've done a... Can I talk? Yep. Just like John to make sure it's okay. We've done a lot of work for them recently. We have current implementation set up on multiple vehicles that are meant to actually have the tractor beams attached to them. Their current implementation works from a vehicle setup standpoint. There's still some remaining work to do from the actual EUPU team. They're actually delivering the vehicle tractor beams themselves. But right now in the environment we've developed it, you can spawn the ships that have them in and use them. Another big bit of confusion is because the sizing, when we did some of it, we did it to weapon sizes instead of component sizes, whereas EUPU have done their development on it. They've decided they want to go in the direction of component sizing rather than weapon sizing. So some of the size numbers will have changed, but how much they lift is consistent for how much we've always wanted it to lift. So, for example, instead of going all the way up to I think the biggest one we ever said was like size 6 or size 5 or something. Like the biggest one now will be the size 3. We might do size 4 if we ever do something for a very niche situation. But
the SRV is
the SRV
a 3 now.
Is a 3, but that 3s are able to move ships. But size 2s can do 32 SU containers. I can't remember how much size 1s and 0s do, but like we've just reformatted it as the system's start formalized a lot.
Están comentando un poquito el tema de los rayos tractores y de qué pasa con ellos y cómo están avanzando. Dice que ya nos hemos probado en el juego, que falta por el equipo del universo persistente de Europa que está trabajando en lo que es el aparato físicamente, que también una de las cosas que han hecho ha sido, antes estaban categorizados como armas, tenían hasta tamaño 7 y ahora han decidido categorizarlos como componentes y tenemos de tamaño hasta tamaño 4, siendo 4 pues entiendo componente capital. Entiendo que es así. Por ejemplo, en el caso del Argos RV, que tenemos un tamaño 3, nos permitiría mover naves. Tamaño 2 nos permitiría mover grandes containers.
Mad, so there's proper integration for them now.
There was stuff kind of hinting it, but it wasn't.
It's
It
proper.
wasn't like legit, so to speak.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually like a utility mount with a actual.
Yeah, so they're now proper
vehicle
turrets, so you
tractor on
can swap to the view and use
Yep.
them and move boxes and things.
How's the golden standard for the Retaliator going? We'll get to that point where we do some updates on ships general, but this was a highly voted question.
Yeah, so it is in progress. We're working on the cockpit at the moment, bring it up to modern standards, because it's a bit
Yeah.
old-fashioned, I guess is one way to say. It's not really got MFDs to the right metrics anymore.
Right.
Doing it for Squadron first, and then it'll work its way into the P when we're happy with what we need to do for Squadron.
Will there be a way to dock a reclaimer to a station in the future to avoid needing to go down to the planet to retrieve it?
So we wanted that originally for the original implementation of the docking collars, but we found that the current positioning of the arms and the engines were off. So we're going to have to go in and fix that, as well as I think we found the actual doors were the wrong size as well. So we need
The
to
door
sort
is
them
just
as well.
some
I
random
think we looked
door.
at that and we did some work towards.
No, we wanted to do it, we just
Okay.
didn't have time when we were doing all the other
Docking
salvage
collars.
work.
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's wanted, but it's going to require changes to the exterior, the physical arms and everything, which are very complicated mechanisms. So
Están comentando el tema de la Retaliator, de cómo progresa en el trabajo con el stand. Dicen que bueno, que están ahora mismo en ello, están trabajando en lo que es en el cockpit, para que se amolde las necesidades que requiere el Escuadrón 42. Una vez tengan eso, pues saldrá, pero que quedan otras partes para trabajar, como puede ser la pregunta que acaban de hacer, si seremos capaces de acoplar a la Retaliator a una estación en lugar de tener que aterrizarla. Y dice que sí, que es una de las intenciones que tiene, pero que hay que hacer reformas a lo que es el exterior y la forma en la que hace docking y cómo se comportan los motores, porque hay como obstrucción y demás. Entonces que bueno, pues que la Tali al final pues necesita todavía, o sea, esos cambios que nos habían enseñado que eran intenciones, pero que todavía no están metidos, que de momento están con lo que es la sección de las pantallas de las MFDs del cockpit y que se ve bien el cockpit. Vamos a ver con qué salen, ¿no?
Let's see. We talked a lot about the capital ships. Things like this. One of the most voted up questions here is about the Polaris. Simply put, is the Polaris actually in production? It shows that it is on the progress tracker, but the Apollo was once on the progress tracker at one point as well, and priorities change, and yada, yada, yada. So we'll go to Camera John here. There's one. Camera John. There we go. That just sounded like Ben wanted the question.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
want the
good,
question.
Ben.
No.
You were talking crap.
think it's only fair.
Ben.
All right.
So is the Polaris in production?
I'm going to start with the Apollo.
let's talk about capital ships and when they're in development. So Apollo.
The Apollo is now a capital ship.
Yeah, it grew so much.
Don't.
All right, we'll talk about the Polaris. So the Polaris is I'd say it's more in pre-production. Like we are spending time investigating it at the moment. As we've already kind of hinted on, when it comes to doing our capital ships, we want to make sure that we're tackling them in a way that allows us to scale up to not just do one capital ship, and we can tick off a few more from the lineup. It is like literally the last couple of weeks we've been looking at it, breaking down the concept,
Un momentito.
breaking down what to scale up to not just do one capital ship, and we can tick off a few more from the lineup.
Don't.
All right, we'll talk about the Polaris. So the Polaris is I'd say it's more in pre-production. Like we are spending time investigating it at the moment. As we've already kind of hinted on, when it comes to doing our capital ships, we want to make sure that we're tackling them in a way that allows us to scale up to not just do one capital ship, and we can tick off a few more from the lineup.
Vamos a ver. Esto puede decir muchas cosas. Lo he puesto varias veces porque me he quedado todo loco. O sea, la Polaris, ¿qué pasa con ella? Está en producción activa. Dice, está en preproducción, pero queremos llevarla a un punto en el que podamos sacar más de una nave capital de la línea. Estamos hablando de que la Polaris va a tener variantes. What the fuck. Un momentito. Vamos a seguir escuchando.
It is like literally the last couple of weeks we've been looking at it, breaking down the concept, breaking down what is involved with actually delivering it. I think what people need to understand as well is, this is quite an old ship. The concept is quite old. There's a lot of gaps in it, as Corey mentioned. So really, we're just doing our kind of, our sanity check on everything, make sure we've got everything in progress. It will be going into full production
very soon.
Shortly, yeah, very soon.
Very soon, TM.
So
Chris deleted the old interior setup level for it this afternoon, ready for the new one. So that's how soon it is.
We are working on it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
it isn't a full team on it. Yeah,
Okay.
we're doing
Vamos a ver, se refiere... También puede estar refiriéndose a una nave capital, no, pero habla de naves capitales, no habla de la Galaxy ni habla de la Perseus. O sea, habla de other capital ships from the lineup. ¿De acuerdo? Other capital ships from the lineup. La Galaxy no es una nave capital y tampoco lo es la Perseus, ¿vale? Están hablando de mandanga. O sea...
the pre-productions.
That's
in the pipeline last time. There's been a lot of pre-planning changes to help us further, not have us trip over ourselves. So it is in production in that sense.
Yeah, it hasn't started like white boxing.
Open
we haven't started
adding
assets to the editor and stuff, but we are basically doing a full breakdown of what we've got, working out how we're going to tackle it, trying to get the plans in place, and answer the questions. There's some holes in the concept which we could do with a little bit more work on, and they're a bit loose. So it's just kind of breaking down that stuff. But we haven't got a team of artists that are working on it. We have one, and then I look at it every so often. Corey sticks his nose in it, and it's just it's us trying to. We want to come to a point where we can come together, have a proper kick-off with the team that are working on it, and go, okay, we know what we're asking you to do, rather than being like, hey everyone, let's have a look, click. This is cool.
Yeah, and to touch on the roadmap.
Claro, está diciendo que quedan algunas cositas por resolver en el concepto, algunos huecos vacíos que tienen que tal y que quieren asegurarse de que tengan todo bien atado antes de entregárselo a un equipo para que se pongan a trabajar. En serio, ¿no?
Asks, so you could have someone on the Polaris for 1 week. And
A ver, maldita sea, ¿me vais a hacer volver al sitio? ¿Me vais a hacer volver al sitio? Me cago en la Perseus, la R y la Galaxy, la madre que las parió a todas,
How we're going to tackle it, trying to get the plans in place, and answer the questions, gaps in it, as Corey mentioned. So really, we're just doing our kind of, our sanity check on everything, make sure we've got everything in progress. It will be going into full production
very soon.
Shortly, yeah. So it's more in pre-production. We are spending time investigating it at the moment, as we've already kind of hinted on. When it comes to doing our capital ships, we want to make sure that we're tackling them in a way that allows us to scale up to not just do one capital ship, and we can tick off a few more from the lineup.
Hacer unas pocas más de la línea. A ver, podría referirse a la mierda de la Perseus y la mierda de la Galaxy, pero yo quiero otra Polaris. O sea, yo quiero una Polaris que en vez de tirar torpedos, pues yo qué sé, tire Lanzar Bandul, tío. O sea, sí, es cierto que puede haber ahí un tema. Es cierto que puede haber ahí un tema de que se refiere a lo que es la línea. Es cierto de que puede referirse a la línea, chavales. Pero puede haber nuevas naves capitales, Filse. Puede haber una variante de la Polaris que sea la Polaris, yo que sé, agricultora, tío. Y que me tenga un biodomo. Y que plantes árboles, tío. En vez de torpedos, puntas hacia el suelo y plantas ahí cipreses, tío. ¿Me entiendes? En plan. A ver.
It is literally the last couple of weeks we've been looking at it, breaking down the concept, breaking down what is involved with actually delivering it. I think what people need to understand as well is, this is quite an old ship. The concept is quite old. There's a lot of gaps in it, as Corey mentioned.
No, pero sí que se refiere a lo de la línea de la Galaxy y tal.
Our sanity check on everything, make sure we've got everything in progress. It will be going into full production
very soon.
Shortly, yeah, very soon.
Aparte que va a ir en producción muy breve, en breves.
Interior setup level for it this afternoon, ready for the new one. So that's how
Ready
soon
to
it
go.
is.
We are working on it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
it
it's-
isn't a full team on it yet.
Okay.
We're doing the pre-productions.
That's
in the pipeline last time. There's been a lot of pre-planning changes to like help us further, not have us trip over ourselves. So it is in production in that sense.
yeah.
It's
It
just-
hasn't started like
And now it hasn't
white
cracked
boxing.
open
Yeah,
Max
like we haven't
started
started like
making the walls.
adding assets to the editor and stuff, but we are basically doing a full breakdown of what we've got, working out how we're going to tackle it, trying to get the plans in place, and answer the questions. You know, there's some holes in the concept which we could do with a little bit more work on, and they're a bit loose. So it's just kind of breaking down that stuff. But we're not like
Claro, están en producción, pero están dándole caña. O sea, no está en preproducción, pero están dándole caña. Pero no está todavía propiamente dicho en producción, en plan en Whitebox.
kick off with the team that are working on it and go, okay, we know what we're asking you to do, rather than being like, hey everyone, let's have a look, click.
O sea, que si, por lo que dicen, deberíamos tenerla para el año. O sea.
To touch on the roadmap bit, something that often gets overlooked on the roadmap is it doesn't particularly show like people moving on and off projects or tasks. So you could have like someone on the Polaris for 1 week and they go off it for a week and then they go back on it for another week. That will show as 3 weeks continuous, or you could have one person come on, one person go off, then another person comes on, and that will show 2 people for that entire time. In conjunction with that, we've, as part of all of our pipeline work, we've been moving away from our previous scheduling method, which is what the roadmap uses, to being more in Jira. And then because that live updates with the data as we're working through things, and then at some point we go back and put it in there. So there is a bit of lag in how the roadmap updates. So yes, people have been working on it, but it's not like hey, we've got 8 artists working on it since 2 weeks ago when the roadmap said.
And I was going to say, like with the Apollo, because the Apollo was mentioned as well, is that's pretty much what we've done on the Apollo. We had one artist working on it, doing all the pre-production work, making sure it was in a good state, answering all the questions that were unanswered on it, so it's ready to go into production. It is not in production. Yeah, we haven't got a whole team of artists working on it, but we've done all that preliminary work, and that's why it's not been on the roadmap, because someone's been allocated to it, they've been chipping away at it and getting it ready.
All right, let's see. Next question says, some ship designs have flaws with component swapping. How will this be addressed on legacy ships, and especially where components won't fit past doors or airlocks and things like ladders? I was just going to look at Mark instantly.
Yeah, I can go with it. So a lot of that's what gold standard's for. So when we go through and do gold standards, using the retaliator as an
Está comentando que la Apolo parece ser que está lista para ponerse a trabajar en ella, que solo falta que se le pueda asignar la tarea a alguien, que todo el trabajo de preproducción está hecho.
actually fit. Another thing is what components are actually meant to be taken out with tractor beam. So it's size 3 and capitals obviously aren't meant to be tractor beamed out. You're supposed to go to a dry dock and someone else will take it out for you because they're too large of components to do, because theoretically to get to them you need to cut parts of the hull out because they're just too large for a person to lift. So the size 0, 1 and 2 you should be able to tractor beam out. Doors that don't fit currently, gold standard will address that, but until we do gold standards on the interiors of a lot of
Otra cosa que está diciendo el tema de los componentes, y que componentes que no caben por puertas y tal, y digo, bueno, pues para eso está el Gold Standard, ¿no? A la hora de sacarlos y tal, que de tamaño 0 a 2 podrá hacerlo el jugador, pero de tamaño 3 en adelante, pues tendrás que ir a un muelle seco, ¿no? Para poder hacer este tipo de cosas.
Ships like divvied up amongst ourselves, so like even though people leave and people join, there's like the list of all of the ships, and it's like, okay, you're responsible for these. So if there's a component swapping issue on like a particular ship, that like one of mine, I've forgotten which one it was, but I had to like remove around a little bit of the room. Nothing players would really notice, but like it's just enough to make the collision a bit more comfortable to move it out. So you get occasions like that where you'll get like a random like bug come through, and it's like, oh, if you've got a spare 10 minutes to do that, you quickly look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a really quick fix that will hopefully make your lives a lot easier. So we do try to, even though we're like, you know, I'm on this ship for X amount of time, I will disappear for like an hour or 2 if it saves you guys the grief, you know.
Yeah. It depends on the amount of work, right?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah. If it's like a massive overhaul, like obviously that takes
none of the doors.
but if I can like sneak it in, like I'll try, you know.
Some of it's really quick wins, like when the ship was initially modeled, or when someone created the component base, they just forgot to like cut a hole in the collision for the components. So it's literally impossible to remove it because it's like behind the collision of the exterior, for example.
I think like, a lot of our ships were made before we had like, there was no feature work had been done on it, so we didn't know how we were going to tackle it. So we were just making the best decisions we could at the time. And now we know better. So that pipeline has evolved, and some of them are super quick. Some of them are like, this door has no animation, it has no mechanics to do the animation, there's just a hole behind it, and they're the ones that take a bit more time. You know, they need a proper art pass, proper design pass.
That's why they call it game development and not game construction.
Well, I mean, Vanguard's a good example, right? Had that little railing, which from that point looked nice, having that little railing as you go up the stairs. I think so, where you just cut the railing off. It's a small little thing, easier to do, but like at the time when we did it, looked good from that standpoint. No one really thought, oh, that railing's going to get in the way of the components, because it wasn't something that people actively
same
thought about.
Same with some of the component hatches that have doors that sort of clamshell open.
Yeah.
They were done so they open it, looks nice and cool, and like, yeah, it'll fit out there.
You can
But
get
then when it comes to actually taking it out, they're like,
Están comentando el hecho de que a veces cuando incluso construyen las naves con la intención de que se puedan sacar los componentes, pues que se puede escapar alguna métrica, se puede escapar algo que no sea del todo lo confortable que se espera. Y bueno, comentáis hablando que por eso se llama desarrollo de videojuegos y no construcción, ¿no?
It's just tech debt, really. Like, you know, a feature comes online, it gets proven out, and then if we have to re-implement that into a bunch of like existing assets, you know, we try our best to anticipate what kind of features will be coming, but we don't necessarily know how that feature will work. So, you know, part of the challenge of being sort of a team that's affected by a feature is you have to then retroactively support it, you know. So I think that's a big part of what gold standard is. These are all the features we need to support in our vehicle.
Está comentando el producer, ¿no? Que efectivamente pues esto es uno de los retos a los que nos tenemos que enfrentar, que no siempre vamos a estar preparados para las características nuevas, aunque tenemos que tener la capacidad para poder regresar y revisar, ¿no? Para eso es el gold standard, precisamente para traer a las naves que no cumplen con los estándares que se requieren, pues revisar esas naves y pues arreglar eso, ¿no?
Or whenever, like particular ships, you go to fix it and you're like, this is fine.
Yeah,
great.
It becomes a part of your, you know, your validation. It becomes a part of the like acceptance criteria for the ship. Is it needs to support this feature. So you know, we would bring those features into the like review process and basically make sure actually, if we're making a new ship, it should have physicalized components, etc. That all of the features that exist for the ship will be, you know, validated as a part of the review process. So it's more the older content that was kind of, you know. When we first started out, we were kind of discovering what a ship.
It's why each one of these that we make, we get better at it.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. You know, the Rock DS.
It's fine.
Cut you off. And it's like, no, terminate it. Cut them off.
Was that the emergency button?
The salvage thing was a really good example of how some things you just can't plan for ahead of time. Like, salvage is coming online, we know it's going to use the UV2 damage system. We've done all that for the ships already because that's what damage does when you shoot ships. So we're good. And then when it came online, we were like,
oh boy,
we're not good.
Yeah. Well, we didn't realise quite how much of the like the visuals would affect the actual data. So you know, the parts of the ship that were like slightly you know, wouldn't necessarily take as much damage, and they, you know, it'd look fine when you're blowing this thing up. But then it was meaning that you could never like 100% salvage the ship because you couldn't salvage like certain panels, and obviously it just looked a bit weird that, you know, you'd be salvaging along and it would just stop, and it's like, oh well, yeah.
Or when there was stuff behind it that would make you see through, like
Or salvage like the left wing, and then like the rear right fin would just disappear, and you're like, what?
What's going on?
You know, in chat they're debating whether I did that on purpose when I mentioned the my absolute adoration for the Rock DS. No, I did not do that on purpose. If I had done that on purpose, I would have said how much I really like the Rock DS, and then this would have happened. Let's see, we're almost out of time. Let's see how many more questions we can get in there. The C1 Spirit is marked to have an S3 tractor beam. Will the C1 be able to track smaller vehicles? And what's the difference between an S3 and an S5? This goes to your...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. It's not supposed to track the vehicles. It's for 32 SU cargo containers, the size 2, so it's getting changed to a size 2, but it's just part of the refactor of the tracked beam sizes.
It's still just as powerful as it was, it's just the
Yep,
names changed.
it doesn't do any less or more than we said it was going to do originally, it's just that the numbering's changed because we're now doing component grading instead of weapon grading.
Does that mean it can... I don't know if I want to ask this question.
Go on, ask the question.
So if you've got like a PTV that's like super small, can that be picked up by a size 2?
32 SU containers. What was set as the maximum you'd have to ask for UPU.
Full of what though? Gold?
A ver un momentito,
It's their
porque
feature.
esto es importante.
32 SU containers. What we're now doing component grading instead of weapon grading.
Does that mean it can... I don't know if I want to ask this question.
Go on, ask the question.
So if you've got like a PTV that's like super small, can that be picked up by a size 2?
32 SU containers. What was set as the maximum you'd have to ask for UPU.
Full of what though? Gold?
That's UPU.
Water.
It's their feature.
Come on, Mark, give us the answers.
So
All right, I'll just go ask.
Is the PTB smaller or larger than 32?
Well, physically it's smaller.
Claro, están hablando del tractor beam de lo que es la C1, que si sería capaz de llevar, o sea, de mover a vehículos. Están diciendo que no tiene el tamaño suficiente al final. El Argo SRV que tiene el tamaño S3 sí, pero esto sería capaz de mover containers de hasta 2 unidades. O sea, que estamos hablando de que es el de... O sea, no entiendo. O sea, el container grande, el container doble y los otros no. Esto es algo que tenemos que saber. O sea, de muchas cosas, ¿no? O sea, cómo va a ser realmente la movida. O sea, estamos hablando de que entonces... Es que hay muchas incógnitas. O sea, porque si tenemos los containers de 32 de la Hull C y tenemos el rayo tractor de la Hull C, entendemos que el rayo tractor de la Hull C es de tamaño 3 y sería capaz de mover vehículos. O sea, es algo que tienen que aclarar o que tenemos que ver.
Definitely would have less mass.
I feel like I'm getting someone into trouble here. Do the redacted thing.
Quick call Thorsten.
Yeah.
Yeah, ring Thorsten.
Can we get Thorsten on the line?
So that's confirmation that the new tractor beams will be able to lift a gray cat. Let's see.
I can hear the team's messages as already.
Yeah, no,
Están hablando si sería capaz de mover un PTV, pero no.
All right, you had to know
Parece
this
que
one
no.
was coming.
O sea que no hay respuesta,
What
de
does the
hecho.
Fury and Cutter shutters mean for the Carrack?
It's not as cool.
we'll do them at some point.
No, who's taking it?
Me, I guess. So I want to put them on it. I just need to find time to do it. I was told today, after learning of it, because I'm one of the newer members of the team, so I didn't actually know that Carrack needed these shutters and stuff. That's for like...
Espera, que esto se viene.
Yeah, I guess. So...
All right, you had to know this one was coming. What does the Fury and Cutter shutters mean for the Carrack?
It's not as cool.
We'll do them at some point.
No, who's taking it?
Me, I guess. So I want to put them on it. I just need to find time to do it. I was told today, after learning of it, because I'm one of the newer members of the team, so I didn't actually know that Carrack needed these shutters and stuff. That's for like these guys who know it inside and out to tell me. So I was informed today, because the Carrack's one of the ships I look after. It's like, oh Dan, if you get time.
Vale, un momentito porque tengo que hacer esto, que es actualizar, creo. Con eso debería ser suficiente.
If I had
Actually making a...
coming, so stay tuned for the ships.
Be like a hard surface. Different.
Cool
like,
art. I generally think Merchantman's going to be one of the hardest ships we have.
Uf,
So it's not like we do one corridor kit.
Can't be modular.
Discuss like how here backlog ships that will be going into production. So
Lots of
different
Cool
like,
art style.
of modelling as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of our like actual
Factors that involve training new people and developing time
Más
investment from our
pa'lante.
side to actually
Gentlemen, thank you for
Más para
and
atrás.
adding more and more, balancing,
Más para
time.
atrás.
How do you balance? There's definitely place for a
Más para atrás.
work with the salvage, and there's other features coming online that we have to support, and all of them are time. Lots of time investment from our side to actually implement them in the ships and stuff like the resources.
We didn't get to it. One of the things we discussed about that I want to talk is when I talked about how we balance those things.
Más
on
para
top of
atrás.
bug backlog.
Keep the
Tech
backlog.
Más para atrás.
That initial kind of pre-production was done and it's there. It's
Más pa'lante.
Backlog.
keep the backlog, fix
Feature
features.
support, because we're constantly supporting other feature teams. Like you've got the tractor, there was a lot of work with the tractor beam, there's a lot of work with the salvage, and there's other time investment from our side to actually implement them in the ships and stuff like the resources.
Yeah. We didn't get to it. One of the things we discussed about that I want to talk is when I talked about how we balance those things and stuff like this. There's definitely place for a in-depth discussion of ships that are an entirely unique art style versus that.
No, más para atrás.
We can still deliver our current lineup of ships we want to deliver, and we want to be able to do it justice.
Más para atrás.
We'd worked on that process, and we had a good process.
¿Sería por aquí? Espérate.
We talked about before.
From the episode, you know, the Temporal Storm is in a.
Más
We
para atrás.
missed a narrative.
That they're working on as part of.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know rip
On a
out.
single
Rip
weekend.
Alex.
More to it.
It's
that
like
needs doing.
yeah, case of time and like.
Dan doesn't dictate his own priorities.
Yeah,
so
to be
if
fair.
Case of time. Well, now I'm going to get bombarded on Twitter and inside and out to tell me. So I was informed today because the Carrack's one of the ships I look after. It's like, oh Dan, if you get time, you know you can put the blast shields on the Carrack, and I was like, oh, and you're going to say it on live as well. Now I'm going to get bombarded on Twitter until it's done. So
Oh, you've confirmed it.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you find Dan on Twitter, on Spectrum, if you can dig out his email address, feel free
No,
to...
don't.
I will try for you guys, but yeah, it's just a case of time and like.
Dan doesn't dictate his own priorities.
Yeah,
so
to be fair.
When we talk about like, you know, when you jump on for like,
blame me, it's fine.
it kind of comes back to like the salvage stuff or like the.
Pero es que
I
está
don't-
diciendo.
I-
Es que es-
Yeah, so
I've got, you can put the blast shields on the
Carrack.
on the Carrack and I'll.
Ah, vale, ya está. Por el tema de, claro, por el tema de la Fury, del Blast Shields, de los escudos anti-explosión, dice así, porque parece ser que el pavo pues es nuevo en lo que es el tema de Star Citizen y claro, le preguntaron si podía meter el tema de los escudos anti-explosión también en la Carrack, ¿no? De lo que es el tema del blindaje de la Carrack y cuando tengas tiempo. Y claro, que dice que de repente pues que el tipo se encontró con eso, no sabía ni lo que era una Carrack, por decirlo de alguna manera. Y porque es recién llegado al tema, ¿no? Al curro. Y entonces dice, bueno, pues bombardeo por Twitter, por tal, por redes.
Bombarded on Twitter until it's done. So.
Oh, you've confirmed it.
Yeah, so
I've
if
got
you
it.
find Dan on Twitter, on Spectrum, if you can dig out his email address, feel free
No,
to...
don't.
I will try for you guys, but yeah, it's just a case of time and like.
Dan doesn't dictate his own priorities.
Yeah,
so
to be
if
fair.
When we talk about like, you know, when you
Corey,
jump on for
blame
like,
me, it's fine.
it kind of comes back to like the salvage stuff or like the tractor beaming of components. Like if I look at it and I go, oh, that's a quick fix, it'll be a quick thing. But if I look at it and I'm like, that is not a quick thing, I need to ask for some time because it will affect my other work, then it becomes
Yeah, I mean, we did say that you can have a look at it and see how much work it is, and if the file's already been set up, all the animation data's there, it's all ready to go, and it's just a case of we just need to export it and do it, then cool. But if it's going to take you away from the current vehicle you're on for a week or two, then
When the Carrack was developed, we did prove out...
Yeah. It's nice to fix bugs as a treat.
It's just
you know,
there's more
every
to
now
it
and then.
It's
that
like
needs doing.
cheap
we
win.
made sure it would work, but that's...
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to say, yeah, it'll only take 5 minutes.
No. What I'm saying is we just proved out the spacing, the animation mechanism and stuff. Like it's going to need UV2s, it's going to be LODs, it's going to need more detail and popping, all that stuff.
It's not going to take 5 minutes then.
No.
I mean,
15.
he did manage to build the entire Fury all by himself.
Yeah, I know.
Rip
On a
Alex.
single
Rip
weekend.
Alex.
In memory of Alex.
In memory of Alex.
F's in the chat.
Let's see. A long time ago in the shipyard articles, you mentioned different component types. We talked about sizes, industrial, military, etc., and the ability to tune them. Is this still the plan? And if so, can you give us any hope for the future of tuning? Love Twingo? Oh, that's your car?
Yeah.
Twingo?
We'll talk about the Twingo for the rest of the time. It's sort of more of a EU-PU thing now. Definitely plans to have those different types, grades, sort of like performance windows for different items. And they have a pretty comprehensive engineer slash tuner slash repairer gameplay proposal that they're working on as part of some of the other features they're doing. So it's sort of tuning items is part of that role. So it's definitely planned.
El tema de, están comentando el tema de lo que es ajustar objetos, tunear objetos, que eso es parte de la iniciativa de reparación ingeniería que tienen en el equipo de EUPU.
We're just about out of time. Normally we do kind of a round robin on ships that are in production right now. Because like you said, sometimes the public roadmap falls a little bit out of sync and stuff like this. Can you just give us an update on ships that are what you would consider in active production as opposed to like pre-production? We know the Polaris is what we consider pre-production. Yeah. Somebody is on there scoping out the work necessary before it moves into production. But what's in active production right now?
We're in the danger zone here now.
Yep. Well, I'm going to slowly do it and look at John as I see it. So there's Redacted that's on Josh.
Yeah.
There's
Esto es interesante.
Adam. Will I talk about that one?
I'm trying to think what Adam's doing.
Who knows?
Spirit.
Yeah.
Yep. We've got
Too late.
Too late now.
Me parte, están diciendo naves en las que están trabajando de forma activa y de cuidado, zona peligrosa. Están trabajando en una Redacted, están trabajando en otra que tal y suelta Spirit y dice, venga, va, esa la puedes decir, vaya tela.
I was pretty sure that one was safe. So we've got the Spirit in. What else do we have?
SLV just finished art and design.
Yeah. Obviously.
Hull C.
Yep, Hull C.
SRV, la Hull
Its
C.
final teething.
We've got some more Redacteds that are on Chris.
Más Redacted. Vale, ¿qué más?
What else is it? What are the US working on?
X1?
What's the US working
X1's about to start.
La X1 está a punto de empezar.
That's had a little bit of work done there already, but...
Yeah, the Storm is storming through production.
He did it.
Del Storm
It was
también.
in the segment. It was in the episode yesterday. Oh, you said the Storm is coming through. Yeah, no, we actually, we missed a narrative bit. It's, again, some of the things that missed through. It's like, in case you guys didn't catch it from the episode, you know, the Tumble Storm is in a concept promotion right now as part of Invictus, but it is already in production with the LA folks. And it's looking good. That stuff you saw at the end, that was not concept art. That was the actual white box and well into gray box stuff. It's looking great so far.
They're doing the Santok Yai as well.
Santok Yai también.
We'll be updating for the we'll be showing you an update on the Santok Yai for Alien Week in just a few weeks.
Montreal are working on some variants of an existing ship. I'm just trying to mentally go around the floor.
Pretty sure that's all of them.
Retaliator stuff we're doing, we talked about before.
Están trabajando en Retaliator, Montreal está trabajando en variantes de naves. Están trabajando en la Alien Week, vamos a ver cositas.
Caveat.
Un momento. En la Alien Week vamos a ver también avances en la Santok Yai, en Insight.
G12.
G12 will be going, so in the next
El G12
year,
también.
backlog ships that will be going into production. Caveat, things can always change.
Yeah.
Pero será
Polaris,
para el año que viene.
Apollo, G12, Raylan.
Polaris,
X1s.
Apollo, Raylan.
I'm
La
noticing
X1.
something conspicuously.
Eso está hablando de las naves que van a trabajar el año que viene,
Don't know what you're talking about.
Ban new.
So we'll talk about the merchantman briefly, because we discussed like how we want to do the backlog of capital ships. So we want to start with RSI, because doing the Polaris first helps reduce the amount of work needed for the Perseus and the Galaxy. So,
aquí nos lo confirman que hacer el trabajo de la efectivamente hacer el trabajo de la Polaris reduce la cantidad de trabajo necesario en la Perseus y en la Galaxy, y que van a empezar con eso. O sea, la Merchantman pasa a segundo plano. Estamos hablando de que las vamos a tener para el año, o sea, porque van a empezar a trabajar, o sea, esto es para el año.
those three will likely be like a chain of dependencies from each other.
Kind of shared assets.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared assets.
Que por lo menos van a empezar a trabajar en ellas el año que viene, o sea que entiendo que deberían de salir a lo largo del año.
Between them, obviously the exteriors are like quite different, but you do an RSI hall kit or corridor kit, floor kit, doors, beds. Yeah, it all gets reused across them, maybe with some slight material differences. So there are a few things that were problematic with the BMM. Firstly, everything is unique.
Everything.
So it's not like we do one corridor kit.
It can't be modular.
Yeah,
It's
it can't
so
be
many
modular. It has to be
bespoke
unique.
shapes. Yeah.
Nothing on the ship can be modular. Every corridor, every room.
Everything's unique. So the amount of time investment.
I mean, There's some chairs, but even then some of the chairs we couldn't reuse because of the shaping of the rooms.
So like molded something,
Yeah.
right? There's
So like
lots of bespoke
everything.
geometry.
It was.
So yeah, we had a lot of people on there. We had some unfortunate people leaving, which they'd been here quite a while, so we'd lost a lot of sort of that team knowledge and part of rebuilding the team. Obviously, effectively, again, like we said, you don't get new staff members go, hey, welcome to the Banu Merchantman, here's a completely...
Claro, está diciendo que además han perdido miembros del equipo que estaban trabajando en el tema de la Merchantman, que sabemos, ¿no? Y que además dice que la Merchantman que no es algo que... O sea, en el caso de la Merchantman, con respecto a otras naves, que no es posible hacerla modular en el sentido de reutilizar las cosas, porque cada parte de cada aspecto de esa nave va a ser mucho más único. Y que efectivamente lo que habían dicho antes, no pueden pillar un equipo nuevo y decirle, hey, aquí tenéis la Merchantman en mano, poneros a currar, ¿no? Que tienen que reestructurar de nuevo el equipo que se va a encargar de la Merchantman.
bespoke thing that does not follow any of our existing art guidelines.
Yeah.
And all the time we would have put into that would be just for that ship.
Mm-hmm.
We get no reuse from it. So yes, we will do it again, but personally, I think the time is better spent on other capital ships to get people up to speed, and then we can start putting people...
Claro, que dice que es mucho mejor gastar el tiempo en otras naves capitales para poder acelerar los procesos, poder crear una librería de objetos reutilizables para otras naves.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement there for it. It's just making sure that, again, like we said, that the team's set up to succeed with it and we can actually deliver it to the standards that we expect.
Can you imagine training new people and developing brand new art style for a ship? Because like, I generally think Merchantman's going to be one of the hardest ships we ever do, just because of all the additional factors that involve with it, the scale of it, the fact that nothing is really reused. It's all unique molded, all the rooms, all the floors. It's that.
It's a different
cool
like,
art
style of modelling as well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of our like actual discipline of like how we make ships.
More organics.
Yeah, it's like more like traditional vehicle modelling, like than it would be like a hard surface weapon.
Yeah, it's hard surface meets organic and this weird.
It's
automotive.
strange,
You
isn't
know,
it?
I say we'd worked on that process and we had a good process in place, and it was just unfortunate that someone chose to go off and chase new adventures, and we wish them the best of luck, and it was a big loss to the team, but that initial kind of pre-production was done and it's there. It's just we just need to get to the point where we can still deliver our current like lineup of ships we want to deliver, and we want to be able to do it justice, and it just takes a bit of time.
And keep on top of bug backlog.
Keep the backlog,
feature support, because we're constantly supporting other feature teams. Like you've got the tractor. There was a lot of work with the tractor beam. There's a lot of work with the salvage, and there's other features coming online that we have to support, and all of them are time. Lots of time investment from our side, actually.
Dice que tienen que soportar otras características que relacionadas con el salvage, relacionadas con los tractor beams. Realmente el tiempo está mejor invertido en algo que no sea ahora mismo la Merchantman, no lo vuelvan a recalcar, y que dice que está hecho trabajo de preproducción, pero que tienen que buscar realmente el momento adecuado para poner, y que efectivamente pues si quieren hacer ese planteamiento de poder meter una nave capital por año, 2 naves capitales por año, pues obviamente tienen que hacer las cosas de otra manera.
Backlog, balance between giant capital ships or ships that are an entirely unique art style versus that the same people at the same time could crank out 4 other ships in the same period of time. How do you balance that? And then of course, all the gameplay balance implications at 197 different vehicles now, and adding more and more, balancing, their capabilities and stuff. So there's a video like this that can just be all about balance, and I think we'll probably pursue that down the line, because it's a conversation I would really like to have, and I think the community would benefit from it. But that does it for today, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me to hang out at the end of a Friday. I'm going to need your help putting everything back. As you can see, there's a big giant change to the set, so I'm going to need you here for the next 2 or 3 hours just to move furniture and put everything back. You good?
Sure.
Okay. For Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was what button? That was John, and that's Corey, and that's Chris, and that's Ben, and that's Mark, and that's Dan. Enjoy the rest of Invictus. I think there's more promotions to the last weekend and stuff like that. If I had thought about it, I would have looked it up and told you about it, but I'm not good at my job. And I'll see you next week. tune in for Inside Star Citizen next week. We are talking about the resurrection like a phoenix of Arena Commander next week, and there's a lot of really cool stuff coming. So stay tuned for that. And I think we should just end it there.
You haven't done Corey's introduction of role.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Corey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi.
¿Qué trolls, por favor?
Baited him so hard.
Ben, come back. Why are you not helping?
Such a jerk.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say I fixed that. Do it because people have been really mean to me. So I fixed that Invictus tint, the one that was funny colours.
Everyone was complaining on Reddit about.
Yeah, like the 1,000 upvotes on Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all visible and it's nice.
I'm going to roll it back though because everyone's been really mean to me today.
I don't think they're going to believe you.
Chat wasn't mean to you, only us.
I saw someone actually making a remark about my beard that I found quite hurtful.
Is it that it's not impressive enough yet?
Yeah, it's not very good.
I ain't even got
I'm
one.
trying, okay.
You know, true story, the very first video I did, the very first episode of Around the Verse back in like 2014, the #1 comment was, his beard has too many colors. And it shook me for like 2 weeks. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do about that? I can't help how many colors, so it's just...
Too many colors?
Yeah, too many colors. Don't
Did you
don't
dye
read
it?
No! Don't use, if I had to be a single color. But no, just don't read YouTube comments.
I thought you maybe done like a rainbow beard or something.
No.
Oh.
Just like salt and pepper.
It's just his face.
It's just my face.
Bye.
All right. We're really going now, everybody. Bye.
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 Bien, estaba contando una historia de que cuando hizo su primer round de Verse, que uno de los primeros comentarios más votados fue que tenían demasiados colores en la barba. Y estaban preguntando, o sea, ya veis el percal. Y estaban preguntando que si se había teñido. Y dijo que no, obviamente no. En fin. Después de estar... pues eso. Está comentando de que la semana que viene... bueno, aparte que tienen que buscar un balanceo constante entre entre grandes naves capitales... porque además hay que meter también el balanceo a medida que van añadiendo más naves, hay que balancear esas naves para ver las capacidades que tienen comparadas con otras, y además también pues el tema de pues las naves pequeñas que van saliendo o medianas o lo que sea, ¿no? Que tienen que ir haciendo un constante equilibrio en poder ir sacando naves, porque al final así se inicia el juego. Están comentando que la semana que viene pues tendremos el Inside Star Citizen dedicado a la Arena Commander con nuevas cositas. Supongo que igual tiene que ver con el tema ese que nos habían dicho de meter los circuitos de carreras y alguna cosita más. Igual también el menú, o igual ver finalmente pues todo unificado ya de cara a la 320, espero. Y de que saquen el actual sistema. Y a ver, la verdad que yo creo que estaría bien que la Arena Commander efectivamente pues reviviera un poco, porque creo que es un espacio en el que la gente que no tiene tanto tiempo durante la semana pueda echar una partidita, un match, ¿no? Por ejemplo, un Star Marine o lo que sea. También estaba la iniciativa de meter actividades de minería y tal. Quizás el poder practicar, probar cosas para pues no morir en el verso, ¿no? Ese tipo de historias también es algo importante. Con respecto a la Apollo, la X1, la Polaris, que van a empezar a trabajar en ellas el año que viene, están programados para empezar a trabajar el año que viene. Supongo que veremos este tema en el roadmap en algún momento. Si todo va bien, yo supongo que, por ejemplo, la Apollo pues debería de estar finalizada, entiendo, ¿no? Debería estar finalizada de cara a la CitizenCon como mucho, o porque ya hay un trabajo hecho, ¿no? Bueno, hay que mirar, porque el trabajo de preproducción ya está hecho, entonces hay que ver si consiguen acelerar lo suficiente como para... A ver, sería lo ideal que las consiguieran sacar a lo largo del año que viene, ¿no? Pero ya veremos. También sabemos que está el tema del munching por ahí. Oh, perdonad, del munching por ahí pululando. Y el tema de la Railens, el tema de la Railen también, efectivamente. El tema de la Railen. Por cierto, Sauloso, muchas gracias por esa donación. Y yo qué sé. Vamos a darle al asunto. Voy a darle un momentillo. O sea, me vas a dar un momentillo porque tengo que ir pues soy humano, tengo necesidades. Vengo ahora. Muchas gracias, Sobretrooper, por esos 17 mesazos apoyando mi canal. Se agradece. A ver qué tenga por aquí. Un momento. Mierdas. Tengo un montón de mierdas abiertas. Quiero mirar también el tema de... aprovechando y tal. Tiene que estar aquí el tema de... el tema del CCU de hoy, ¿no? No sabemos qué hay. Está links... ¿no sabemos o qué? ¿No pasa al principio? ¿Cómo es el tema? Upgrade now. O sea, que es el Upgrade now. El Nova. O sea, que me metí el Nova. Vamos a ver la Pledge Store. A ver que me haga una idea. A ver que me haga una idea para esta vaina. Tenemos aquí Shape Upgrades. Que por cierto me he quitado la espinita y me he pillado ahí la... Me he pillado... Para luego quemarla, ¿no? Pero me he pillado la... Esta de aquí. La Constellation Phoenix. Me la he enganchado. Me he enganchado la Constellation Phoenix para tenerla ahí, que me faltaba ese tema. Y ya. Tema de CCUs. Vamos a revisar qué pasa. Bueno, está el Nova. Con 10 pavos de descuento. La verdad que son descuentos bastante ligeritos. Quizás lo más interesante sea, ya os digo, el pillar con créditos el tema de... O incluso con modas LTI, ya digo, puede ser bastante bueno pillarse el Storm. Creo que el Storm es mejor base LTI que la Fury, ¿de acuerdo? Porque el Storm, pues efectivamente, cuando ahora mismo está en concepto, cuando salga volable subirá más de precio, entonces ya se nos estamos ahorrando 10 pavos. Otros 10 pavos más nos vamos a ahorrar mínimo, o 20, ¿no? Que quizás sean, o 20 más. En total podríamos llegar a ahorrar 30 pavos, o lo que venga, ¿no? Para poder subir a otra nave. O sea que el Storm es mejor base LTI de momento que lo que sería el Fury, a mi parecer. El tema... Hay que esperar a que pase la Invictus y ver cositas van saliendo, ¿no? Pero sí. Sí que está ahí el asunto de que como base LTI pues tiene mejor pinta. Pero ya digo, no para aplicar ahora, o sea, sería para aplicar a un futuro. O sea, sería una base LTI del futuro, habría que esperarse. Aplicarlo ahora sería una locura. Y ya está, creo que son los CCUs que hay. Pues sigue estando la Vulture, tiene su Warbon Edition, que está presente ahí. Y además la capulla de la Vulture tiene el mismo valor que... Es que estoy pensando realmente en montarme una Blue y tal, pero... Una Caldas Blue, pero... La verdad que de momento no me quiero calentar mucho la cabeza. No veo que haya una necesidad imperiosa de gasto. Un momentito. A ver. El modo Conquest, el Theaters of War, no se ha quedado en el olvido. No se ha quedado en el olvido, no. Buena, Japón. no se ha quedado en el olvido. Lo que pasa es que había un equipo que se encargaba de eso, se llamaba Fire Sprite, que dejaron de trabajar, se rompió el vínculo que tenían con Cloud Imperium Games y ahora pues están haciendo otra paranoia diferente. Y entonces lo que han hecho ha sido que